Lo que queda de Edith Finch. ¿Qué queda de Edith Finch? Creo que es una pregunta que todos alguna vez nos hemos hecho en algún momento de nuestras vidas. Y espero que este juego venga a responder esa pregunta. Este juego que tiene un 95% de comentarios positivos en Steam. Este juego que tiene un 89 puntos en Metacritic. Este juego que solamente dura 2 horas. Este juego que vamos a empezar ahora mismo. Que bueno, en realidad yo voy a empezar porque este juego me parece que ya empezó. Sí, ya empezó así de una esto. Parece que estamos en un barco, ¿no? En medio del mar. Todo lleno de islas. Mochila, estoy sentado en un banquito. Mira, hay un coso de... parece de ramen, ¿no? Algo japonés o chino. Mira, tenemos un libro. Parecen manos de mujer, me parece. Tengo la mano vendada. Con dibujitos. ¿Qué me habrá pasado? Y unas flores, hay un ramo de flores. No sé qué flores. Yo voy a tirar un tulipán, pero no sé, dejen en los comentarios, chavales, qué flor piensan que es esa. Pero bueno, tenemos un libro que dice Edith Finch. No sé si será mi libro, que soy Edith Finch, o será el libro que encontramos de Edith Finch. No sé, ya hay demasiadas preguntas y acabamos de empezar. ¿Dónde estoy? ¿Quién es este libro? ¿Quién son esas flores? ¿Por qué tengo la mano vendada? Bueno, vamos a descubrir, ahora vamos a abrir el libro. Ahora lo manejo yo.
A lot of this isn't going to make sense to you, and I'm sorry about that. I'm just going to start at the beginning, with the house.
Empezaré por el principio, por mi casa. Ok, vamos en un
Someone had put
bosque.
up a chain link fence, but it looked like I wasn't the first person to hop it.
Mirá los subtítulos. Aparecen ahí. Parece que aparecen donde vas mirando cosas porque... A ver.
My brother Milton disappeared when I was 4. It was like the house just swallowed him up.
Mi hermano Milton desapareció cuando yo tenía 4 años. Ok, tengo un hermano de desaparición sospechosa. Entonces yo soy Edith Finch, mira. Me puedo ver el cuerpo.
I lived here until I was 11, but I wasn't allowed inside half the rooms.
Ya tengo que decir que me está gustando mucho cómo empezó esto. La estética, los subtítulos ahí que aparecen donde mirás. Me gusta, me gusta. Ahora calculo que aquella será mi casa, ¿no? Media rara, pero... Ahora sí estoy yendo a mi casa. No sé cuánto puede durar esto, porque el juego dura 2 horas supuestamente, pero... Parece que es todo más de diálogo y de prestar atención, así que no sé cuántas partes puedo recortar. Capaz hasta queda más largo que el Black Mesa, que recorté todo. Pero bueno, veremos. Si está interesante. El cartero.
Inside the mailbox were bills from 7 years ago.
Factura de hace 7 años me ponía
Open
urgente.
immediately.
O sea que está abandonado esto. Estoy volviendo a mi
I hadn't
casa.
been back since my brother Lewis's funeral.
No vi los subtítulos, pero creo que dijo que... Ahora. Esto, algo de funeral, claro. Está acá. Claro, eso es el funeral de mi hermano Lewis. Pará, el hermano Milton es el que desapareció, el hermano Lewis se murió, o sea, 2 hermanos.
In her will, my mother left me a key, but didn't tell me what it unlocked. Maybe she thought I'd know. Or she thought that the mystery would be enough to bring me back.
Los Finch. Ok, tenemos 2 caminos, para abajo, para arriba. Me parece que para abajo o para allá, ¿no? Para arriba capaz. Metemos zoom.
No one had driven this way in a long time, but I saw a few hoof prints.
Huellas de pezuñas. Capaz los 2 caminos me llevan al mismo lugar. Mirá, un ciervo. Ahí. Arthur Morgan reference. Sí, puede ser que sean dos caminos
The
iguales al
truth is,
mismo lugar.
even after I inherited the house, I never thought I'd come back to it.
Ok, estoy volviendo a la casa después de muchos años. Tengo un hermano desaparecido, un hermano muerto. Los padres calculo que murieron. La mamá sí porque dejó el
But now I had
testamento.
questions about my family that only the house knew the answers to.
Y estoy buscando respuestas sobre mi familia. Casa rara.
The house was exactly like I remembered it, the way I'd been dreaming about it.
Washington.
As a child, the house made me uncomfortable in a way I couldn't put into words.
Está lleno de carteles del pibe.
I asked Edie once about the dragon in the pond. She said it had killed her husband. I was 6. It seemed like an odd joke to me, even then.
Es increíble. Eddie, ¿quién será Eddie?
Now, as a 17-year-old,
17
I knew
años.
exactly what those words were. I was afraid of the house.
Y es rara la casa, es rara. Pero bueno, ahora está abandonada de vuelta. Con la llave, claro.
I hoped the key might unlock the front door. It didn't.
No.
Looking in, I felt like the house itself had been waiting for me.
Por atrás, capaz. Ahora viene un agujerito.
The house felt like it had always been here. Even the swing set was older than my mother.
Bueno, vamos por adentro. ¿Vamos a ver esto? Sí. Goti. Ojo. Te meto por el coso del perro.
Crawling through the doggy door used to be a lot easier when I was 11.
Entramos. Hay como un taller acá en el garage. Esto para las luces.
The power had been turned off the night
No.
we left. For the first time in years,
2010 enero. O capaz esto es de cuando dejamos la casa, supuestamente. Así que ahora será más. Mira, Edith, Milton, Lewis, Don, Eddie. Eddie es otro hermano, entonces. Son todos varones, parece. Menos yo.
I felt like I was home.
Es increíble.
But instead of a family, there were just memories of one.
O sea, están todos muertos en la familia. Mira. Para el primate. Un apple pie. Tiene toda la receta ahí. Esta tiene cómo se hace. Literalmente está toda la receta, es impresionante.
Like how after Lewis started working at the cannery, we all got sick of eating salmon. Except our cat, Molly.
Ah, una gata tenemos. Mira, acá está todo lo que estaba en el barco, es el mismo cosito. Está comiendo lo mismo.
Or how only one restaurant would deliver to our house. So we had Chinese a lot.
Acá, China. Isla Orcas. Es un quilombo la casa, ¿eh?
The table was still a wreck from the night we left. It was like a bomb had gone off, killing everyone but sparing the furniture.
Mira, Eddie estaba en silla de ruedas y con un tanque de oxígeno acá. Está hecho mierda, Eddie. ¿Esto?
My mom was the only one of us who could imagine Great Grandma Edie living in a nursing home.
Ah, Eddie era la bisabuela. Yo pensé que un hermano. Eddie dice mierda, boludo. No sabía eso.
Nothing in the house looked abnormal. There was just too much of it, like a smile with too many teeth. Even the fireplace had a story. Edie told me the bricks came from the original house, after it sank.
Puede que se hundiera. A ver. Bárbara.
Great-Grandpa Sven built a music box for Barbara, along with the rest of the house.
Dice ya voy a ir ahí entonces, así que vamos a ver. Para arriba puedo ir.
After Milton disappeared, Mom sealed up all the bedrooms. Then Edie retaliated and drilled peepholes.
Mira, ¿de quién es esta? Molly. 1937-1947. No.
Molly always seemed like a girl I could imagine being friends with, if she hadn't died in
No,
1947.
Pero, ¿qué pasó en esta familia, boludo? ¿Y esta pieza?
I spent a lot of time playing in Great Uncle Walter's room.
El tío abuelo Walter.
I think my mom sometimes regretted not sealing it up. Lewis told me there were secret passages, but I never believed him.
Por acá también puedo poner la llave, entonces hay que ir probando, ¿eh? A ver acá.
Turns out, my mom was really good at keeping secrets. Now it was time to find out what my mom had been afraid of.
Es increíble, entonces vamos a ver los otros lugares primero. Porque yo dejé la puerta abajo pensando que era ahí. Y esto, man. Hacer un cable acá. Bárbaro. ¿Este quién es?
Edie's father Odin built the original house.
1944-1960, pero se murieron todos jóvenes, chabón. ¿Qué carajo? ¿Qué pasó?
Barbara was a child star for 2 years, until America grew out of it.
Esta estaba esperando GTA 6. Ojo.
Mom must have locked the third floor stairs on the night we left.
Pulso. Bueno. Queda esta, a ver. Hay un par más. Sven, Eddie. 1915-1964. Sven. Eddie, 1907-2010. La abuela vivió bastante, ¿eh? Casi 100 años, boludo.
The last time I was in Edith Sr.'s room, I was 10 and she was painting my portrait.
Esta es la de Calvin. 1950-1961, 11 años.
My Grandpa Sam spent 7 years sharing a room with his dead brother, Calvin.
Gregory, 1976-1977, un año. ¿Qué pasó, boludo?
As a kid, I just assumed every house had peepholes and sealed rooms you weren't allowed inside of.
Es un baño esto. A ver la puerta esta de abajo que me salteé. Para que hay más cosas igual. No sé qué más.
Edie told me once that every Finch who ever lived is buried somewhere in the library.
Es increíble. Acá, a ver.
Mom always told me to stay out of the basement, so I wasn't too surprised when the key didn't fit.
Claro.
A lot of things got left behind in the whirlwind of that last night.
A ver qué hay acá.
From the paintings on the wall, it was clear my brother Milton had been here before me.
Milton.
Reading this, maybe it sounds like I had a plan. But I had no idea what was behind that door.
Ojo.
Just like I had no idea where all this was gonna lead.
No tenía idea de dónde conduciría esto. ¿Qué se viene? Molly.
I grew up looking at Molly's room through the peephole. Molly's gerbil had a tiny bedroom with its own even tinier gerbil cage.
Ahora.
I got the sense Edie had spent a lot of time here before my mom sealed the doors.
1937, 1947, 10 años tenía Molly.
December 13th, 1947. Dear Diary, I'll be gone soon, but I wanted to tell somebody about what's gonna happen. It started when Mom sent me to bed without dinner.
Ojo.
I woke up and I was starving, so I looked around for something to eat.
¿Uso Molly ahora? ¿Antes de morir? Es impresionante.
The gerbil food was dry, but I didn't mind it.
No, qué asco.
Mom, can I come out now?
Sweetheart, it's late. Go to sleep.
Qué raro todo esto. Ojo, estoy diferente.
I kept eating and eating.
No, qué carajo.
I ate a lot of things that night.
¿Qué hace Molly, por Dios?
Then I heard chirping outside my window. It was a barn swallow going back to her nest. I reached out for her.
Estoy totalmente encerrada.
And suddenly,
¿Qué?
I was a cat.
Carajo, boludo.
I tried to be quiet, but the bird was really scared.
Ven, hijo de puta. Te atrapé. No.
I jumped and I almost got her. I could tell she was getting really tired. Now I was up in the big tree. I promised Dad I wouldn't climb it anymore. All I cared about was eating that mama bird.
Carajo, boludo.
I gobbled her up.
Se la comió.
Suddenly, I was an owl.
Una lechuza.
First, all I heard was the wind. Then I heard little teeth nibbling in the grass. Rabbits. I imagined his face looking up and seeing mine through my talons. I swallowed him up, and I didn't chew one bit. Then I flew off to find something bigger. A mama rabbit.
¿Dónde hay?
She was almost too big to carry. I started choking, but I couldn't stop eating.
¿Qué carajo?
And suddenly, I was a shark.
¿Qué? No, ¿qué carajo, boludo? ¿Qué mierda está pasando? Che.
I rolled off the
Uy.
cliff and into the ocean. Now, I was hungrier than ever.
Es impresionante. Ay, ay,
I
cómo
wanted
cagaste.
fat, juicy seals.
Oh, sí.
I tore off her flipper, and it tasted really good.
¿Qué carajo esta nena, boludo? ¿Dónde está ya? Vení, vení.
Grabbed on tight. When I was so hungry, I jumped out of the water. When I opened my eyes, everything had changed.
Soy un pulpo. ¿Son tentáculos? ¿O no? No, una serpiente. O no, no sé qué es esto, man.
Now I was a monster, and I smelled people everywhere.
No, soy un monstruo.
I was big, and I moved real quiet.
Carajo.
I wanted to stop, but also I didn't.
¿Qué carajo? Y bueno, cagaste.
After the last passenger, I was still hungry. And across the water, I smelled something new. Something I had to have, so I swam towards it.
Por si el bicho este todavía.
I slithered onto the sand, and the good smell went into an old pipe.
No entiendo nada de lo que está pasando. No, pará, pero esta es mi pieza. Dice Molly ahí arriba, decía. Sí, sí, o no. Pero está raro.
All of my stomach started growling. And suddenly, I was me again. I held my breath for a long time, but I couldn't hear anything. I think it's waiting for me to fall asleep. But it's not going to wait much longer. It needs to feed, and we both know I will be delicious.
¿Qué carajos? Volví.
I'm not sure if I believed all of that, but I'm sure Edie would have.
Mira, ¿qué es esto? Los Finch. Ahí estoy yo, está toda la familia. Que tiene pinta que... Tengo como que ver las historias de cada uno, ¿no? Parece el juego. Y a ver qué carajo habrá pasado. Bueno, Molly era un bicho asqueroso. Mira. ¿Es Molly esta?
This will be obvious later, but my mom never told me any of these stories. Edie would have, but Mom didn't like bringing up the past. Though, when we adopted a stray kitten, she was the one who named it Molly.
Es increíble.
I spent a lot of time in Great-Grandma Edie's room. We got along, and it was a good place to hide from my mom.
A ver la abuela Eddie. ¿Qué carajo hizo?
When Edie told people Sven was killed by a dragon, she could also have said he was building a dragon-shaped slide that collapsed. She could have, but she didn't.
Dragón mata Finch. Tragedia. Finch family celebrated.
Even in her 90s. Sometimes Edie seemed a lot younger than my mother. Louis died a week before we left, but Edie had already started to memorialize him. Her room was like a museum.
Ojo.
For 500 years, the Finches have been famous throughout Norway for their fortune and misfortune. Odin Finch buries the latest victims of the family curse, his wife Ingeborg and their newborn son, Johan. On January 7th, 1937, he set sail with his family and his house hoping to leave the curse behind.
Maldición.
But 40-foot waves off the coast of Washington send the house and Odin to the bottom of the sea. Odin's daughter Edith, with husband Sven and baby Molly, step ashore on their new home, Orcas Island. Odin Finch is the first to be buried in the new family cemetery. His daughter Edie is already dreaming of a new Finch house. Whatever's wrong with this family, it goes back a long ways.
Odin. Bueno, el Odin vino desde Noruega a Estados Unidos con una casa escapando de la maldición. ¿Qué maldición? No sé. Pero bueno, vamos a seguir, a ver.
Edie gave a big interview about a mole man living under the Finch house. My mom was furious.
¿Qué más hay por acá? ¿Qué es este piso?
The only trace Grandpa Sam's first wife Kay left on the house was the pink bathroom. It was a pretty big trace.
Ojo. Hay un secreto en este baño. Por Sven y Edith Finch.
There's a secret in this bathroom. It's in the last place you would look. It isn't in the cupboard. It's hidden in this book.
Oh, es impresionante.
Sven gave Sam an old camera he'd refurbished. He never put it down.
Milton está en todos lados. Fort Calvin.
I knew Grandpa Sam had a twin, and that he never talked about him.
Ojo.
I guess my grandpa didn't like history any more than my mom did.
Calvin, 1950-1961.
How I Want to Remember My Brother by Sam Finch. The thing I remember is that when he made up his mind, that was it.
Soy el Sam.
My brother said he'd die before he ate another mushroom. And he did. At Barbara's funeral, we swore we'd never be afraid again. And he wasn't. I think Calvin always wanted to fly.
Sam! Calvin! Dinner's ready! Coming!
But that day, he finally made up his mind to do it. I told him going around was impossible.
Voy a salir volando. ¿Para soy Sam
Maybe
o
if
soy
I
Calvin?
hadn't said that.
Calvin, I'm not gonna tell you
No, soy
again.
Calvin.
Maybe if the wind hadn't picked up. Then maybe he'd still be here. But I doubt it. I think he'd already made up his mind. That's what I want to remember about my brother.
Chao, esta vuelta me voy a la mierda. Ah.
The day he made up his mind to fly. And he did.
Y se cagó muriendo.
Calvin's story felt strangely familiar. When I was younger, I remember trying to do the exact same thing.
Seguimos descubriendo la familia, a
After
ver.
the funeral, Edie roped off Calvin's half of the room. Mom said Grandpa Sam enlisted at 18 and never set foot in the room again.
Es increíble.
The passages were a pretty tight fit. They'd obviously been built for smaller hands and bellies.
Para. ¿Y esto qué es? Ah,
Growing up,
bárbaro.
I always thought of Barbara as a child star.
El GTA 6. Por ahí, por acá que había. Ah, para volver. No, para. Ah, no, sí, sí.
Whenever people ask me about my family, the first thing they always want to know about is Barbara.
Volvemos a ver. Milton, acá también estuvo Milton, estuvo en todos lados.
I never thought about how hard it must have been for her afterwards. Of all the stories people wrote about Barbara's death, I'm surprised Edie saved this one.
Old Jack here with another ghastly tale inspired by America's most unfortunate family. I'm calling it The Surprise Ending of Barbara Finch. As a child star, Barbara was famous for her scream. Now at 16, she was all washed up. A has-been. But in a lucky break, she'd been asked to perform her signature scream at a local convention for monster movie fans. It was just the boost her career needed. Unfortunately, her scream hadn't aged well.
Getting better. I think you just need the right motivation.
Her biggest fan and current boyfriend, Rick, was about to demonstrate when...
Now that was a great scream.
It was Barbara's father, Sven. He'd slipped into a table saw and had to be rushed to the emergency room. So Barbara got stuck babysitting her youngest brother, Walter. Her convention comeback was cancelled.
Okay, I'm hearing frustration, but I'm not hearing terror. What if I tried...
A gang of hoodlums in Halloween masks have been terrorizing Orcas Island tonight. Police are urging residents to...
That came from the basement.
You're right! Also, I loved your delivery on that. Why is your basement door locked?
Because my dad likes making puzzles and secret passages. There's a key hidden in the music box. The secret is to keep winding and winding until finally the key pops out.
Thanks, babe.
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
be back in a sec.
20 minutes later, Rick hadn't returned. So Barbara went to look for him, right on cue. She reached for the music box.
What? Es increíble.
And as she wound the key, she listened for Rick, but the house was silent.
Qué carajo, boludo, buenísimo.
She found Rick's crutch and imagined the worst.
100%.
who impaled and then ate his family 10 years ago tonight.
Chabón, qué buena está esta parte, boludo.
The old fridge rattled and grew still.
Oh dear!
Oh!
Rick?
Barb, relax. I was just trying to scare you to help you find your scream.
Well, I'm not scared, Rick. I'm furious.
Then act furious. All I'm getting from you now is that you're hurt and confused and
She threw him out, but she kept a little something to remember him by.
Barb, have you seen my other crutch?
And she was still holding it when she fell asleep watching the late picture show. Hours later...
Barbara! Walter, what's going on up there? Okay, I'm coming up, but if this is a trick, you're dead, Walter.
Ay, 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 Walter. La musiquita buenísima.
Walter, are you there?
Walter had vanished, but his bedside radio was still on.
Orcas Island police describe the man as 6 feet tall, with a steel hook for a hand. Residents are urged to lock all doors and windows and notify the police of any suspicious activity.
Barbara turned, saw the hook man, and was speechless. He was quite smashing. He couldn't get enough of Barbara.
Okay, Barbara, there's gotta be another way out of here.
Vamos.
Not. She played her part beautifully.
Es increíble, boludo.
Molly's door hadn't been opened in years. The hinges groaned.
Toma.
He wasn't moving, but she sensed the story might not be over yet.
Ay, ahora no va a estar. Está buenísima esta parte, chabón. Me va a atrapar ahora.
The hookman had vanished. She listened for his breathing, but all she heard was...
Yes.
At the door, she heard whispering. It was coming from inside the house.
No.
Oh dear.
The monsters had come to surprise her. For Barbara, it was a dream come true. Then she saw what kind of monsters they were, and she realized what was about to happen. She was going to be famous. And with her final breath, Barbara Finch gave the performance of her life. I wasn't there myself, but I hear Barbara was magnificent. Poor girl. She had a taste for stardom. But unfortunately, so did her fans. Of course, the police blamed it all on poor Rick, who disappeared the same night. And little Walter? Hiding under his bed the whole time. He took it all pretty hard, But that's another story. As for Barbara, tucked inside the music box is all they ever found of her. Her ear.
No.
Now that's what I call a real eerie tale.
¿Qué carajo, boludo? Oh, es increíble.
Edie told me all Barbara wanted was to be remembered, as absurd as that comic was. Maybe what Edie saw was a happy ending.
Es increíble. Calculo que habrá que volver a la caja de música, ¿no? Por lo que decía ese librito.
I guess now I know why Mom didn't like me playing with the music box.
Claro. ¿Dónde era? Acá. Hay que girarla. Hay que seguir. Ahí va. A ver, a ver. Es increíble. Che, yo no sé si... Parece como que está embarazada, ¿no? O sea, la panza resalta mucho, no creo que lo hayan hecho casualidad. Parece como si estuviera embarazada. Bueno, a ver qué hay por acá.
Mom said the basement was off limits, unless I wanted another tetanus shot.
Parece el taller, ¿no? Este de Lesben.
I saw Edie sneak down to the basement once, carrying packages.
No hay una luz por acá, viejo.
I thought maybe she was hiding presents.
Y no creo.
It turned out she was hiding a lot more than that. I remember asking Mom once about where Walter had gone. She said after Barbara died, he got as far away as he could. If there's a pattern in all these stories, I think it's that none of us has gotten very far.
Están todos muertos. Walter, 1952-2005. A ver qué le pasó.
Goodbye, everyone. I can't believe I've been down here for 30 years.
¿Qué carajo?
On that
1968.
first day, after the shaking started, I didn't think I'd survive a week. But after a few days, I settled into a routine. That's what kept me sane. Having a schedule, living for today.
¿Qué son duraznos,
I was
boludo?
expected to be dead
Soy el
tomorrow.
Salchi.
But if you wait long enough, you get used to anything.
1976.
Even a monster on the other side of the door starts to feel normal.
¿Qué carajo está
Almost
pasando?
friendly.
Los subtítulos son buenísimos.
And then one day, everything just
2005.
stopped.
Bueno, la
Whatever that thing
música-
was, it was gone.
La música va cambiando con
Maybe
los
I
años,
got
boludo.
tired of waiting. Or maybe I just got tired of being afraid. It's been a week now, the longest in 30 years. I'm done waiting.
Ojo.
I have to leave while I still can. I know it's out there, somewhere.
¿Qué cosa?
Whatever killed Barbara.
Ah.
And Molly. And Calvin. Maybe this is all a mistake. But I need to stop living the same day, even if it kills me. Whatever's out there, I want you to know I'm ready for it.
Es
I'm going to
impresionante.
appreciate all of it, especially the food. I don't mind if I only have a year left, or a month, or a single week. I'd be happy with one new day. I can already imagine the sun on my face.
¿Qué carajos? Y así murió.
Walter died when I was 6. I can't believe my mom never told me he was down here. I'm sure my mom was trying to protect me.
Y puede ser. Dios. Vamos para abajo.
Maybe she was afraid I'd end up like Walter.
Ah, por acá voy a salir.
But if she never told me about an uncle under the house, I can only imagine what else she was hiding.
Y pasan cosas raras acá.
I don't want to make the same mistakes she made.
Ah, por ahí se fue el Walter.
Trying to bury something that's still alive.
Ojo.
Now that there's only one of us left, or maybe 2, I thought it was time I heard the stories for myself and found out what happened to everyone else. But now I'm worried the stories themselves might be the problem. Maybe we believed so much in a family curse, we made it real.
Walter. 1952-2005. Era este, ¿no? En la visión de este tipo, o sea, en la historia de este tipo, que había todo un bosque, ¿no? Toda una montaña. Mira, todas sillas ahí, qué carajos.
I don't know if I should even be writing this. Maybe it'd be better if all this just died with me. But I thought you should know about your family. And the history you're a part of.
Es increíble.
Though to be honest, I feel as lost as you probably do right now.
Sí. La verdad que no entiendo nada.
I think the people in these stories believed them, for what that's worth.
A ver si sube bien las escaleras. Y más o menos.
And when you look at the house, it had that history of imagination and stubbornness and madness. Any of it seems possible.
Volvemos.
I think we've been surrounded by death for so long, we've just gotten used to it. What kind of family finishes building a cemetery before starting the house?
Acá está el cementerio. A ver.
It's embarrassing for me to admit this, but the pet cemetery made me more uncomfortable than the human one.
Ah, este es un cementerio
3 of the
de
gerbils
mascotas.
are mine, and 2 had been my fault.
Durpy Junior, Lucy. Vivieron más tiempo las mascotas que las personas, boludo. Burpy, Charlie, Tucker, Daisy, Coco, Urpi, Churpi, Lurpi, Surpi, Zoe, Coco, ya le leí, un conejo de todo esto sin nombre. Un pescadito ahí. Es impresionante. Bailey. Yatsi, Oliver, Shadow. Ay, 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 ay. Christopher, Bob.
Sven built the house, but it was Edie who designed the cemetery.
Acá están las personas. Molly, un gato. Calvin con el astronauta este. Sven del taller ese. Y Finch. El libro. Walter. Bárbara la estrella.
I'm sure Odin's monument had been Edie's idea. My mom was always trying to move on, but for Edie, the past never went away. She could see it poking out of the water at low tide.
¿Y ahora esto?
Edie said she dreamed about the old house every night.
Ah, es la casa que trajo en el barco.
Edie's side was always easier for me to understand. But the older I get, the more I can see where my mom was coming from. Her dad had been pretty strict, but it wasn't enough to save her brothers. She was just trying to do better. She lost 2 of her brothers, just like I did. I get why she tried so hard to protect us.
Milton.
We never found Milton's body, so my mom insisted we were putting up a monument, not a tombstone.
Es increíble. Están todos muertos. Menos el Milton, que no se sabe.
There's so many things I wish I could ask my mom now. Part of me thinks this is what she wanted all along. For me to come back someday and find everything out for myself. But looking back on it now, if she told me there was going to be so much climbing, I never would have come when I was 22 weeks pregnant.
Claro, yo sabía. Estaba embarazada. Bueno, volvemos para adentro.
I never met Grandpa Sam, but I think he and my mom had a lot in common. They were both pretty intense.
El Sam este era el Yankee
Sam
Supremo.
spent his life shooting photos, but Mom said he got nervous being in front of the camera. I guess we're all afraid of something. Instead of hiding from death, Sam seemed to go out of his way to meet it.
Ojo.
Dawn,
Uf,
I promise.
qué bien.
We'll never forget this weekend.
Yes, sir.
These memories are gonna last a lifetime.
What? Am I gonna have to shoot anything?
It's a hunting trip, Dawn. Shooting is strongly encouraged. Perfect.
It's gonna rain the whole weekend, isn't it? I will never forget this weekend, Dad.
That's the spirit. Okay, got it.
I'm gonna take some pictures, okay?
Just be careful. That camera's older than you are.
¿Dónde está?
Definitely should not have drunk all that coffee. Hey!
That's a keeper.
I'm just saying, I'm not always gonna be here, Don. You'll need to remember this stuff, if you want to survive.
I'll be fine, Dad.
You know who else thought he was gonna be fine?
Some guy who died.
Don, I'm being serious.
I know, Dad. You're always serious. Doesn't being out here make you want to chill out?
Well, to tell you the truth, I haven't been out here in 20 years.
Poemas.
Don, don't you think you could find something more interesting to photograph?
Los
Last
pescados.
time I was with my brother Calvin. Man, that was a great trip.
No.
Your grandpa Sven taught us how to fish, how to build a fire. We found an old logging trail. There were deer everywhere. I bet if I could remember where that trail was, we'd spot a buck for you in no time.
Ojo.
Dad!
Good eyes, Don.
Fotón.
Before you take the shot, let me get a picture of it.
Dad, I...
Just breathe. Turn off your imagination. Focus on your target. Let me get behind you.
Do I have to do this?
Don, you don't have to do anything. But if you want to survive, you'll need to be strong.
Uf.
Great shot, Don!
No, pobre nena, boludo. No, es una serie, feo. Pará, flaco, está llorando.
I'm proud of you, Don.
Lo puedo manejar,
Always
es increíble.
remember that, okay? Sorry, Don, just gotta reset the timer.
Ah, es increíble. Nuestro tiempo.
Dad, it's twitching. I think
That's
it's
totally
some-
normal, Don. Just
No.
focus on the camera. Try not to think about it.
¡Oh! Uy, no me lo esperaba, es impresionante. Realmente me sorprendió, boludo. Y bueno, la mierda
Of all
con Sam.
these stories, that's the one I wish most that my mom had told me.
¿Quién sigue?
After Sam died, my mom and Edie got really close. They'd both lost a lot.
Re turbia esa foto del bebé. Me da miedo, boludo, es increíble. Se ve que tiene un año, ¿no? A ver, Gregory.
Dear Kay, do you remember the way Gregory used to laugh when he thought he was alone? Like something funny was happening, but only he could see it.
A ver esto. No soy el bebé.
I think he saw things the rest of us don't.
Ojo. Ah, puedo manejar la rana, es impresionante.
Bend over, Gregory. It's time to... Hold on, sweetie. Hello? Sam, I told you I don't want to talk right
Vení,
now.
pato, hijo de puta. Toma. Ojo.
I wonder what he saw.
Ah, sí.
What his world
Sí.
was like.
Toma. La casa.
He reminded me so much of Calvin. Lost in his imagination. Whatever it was, he saw.
La ballena me está mirando.
It sure made him happy.
Ahí va. Ahí va. Me parece que esto ya se lo va a terminar. Tengo que agarrar ese shampoo. Sí. Oh.
Sorry about that, Gregory.
I know you did everything you could.
Che, ¿cómo sabrá? ¿Cómo habrá muerto este?
Damn it. Hold on, I don't want Gregory to hear this.
I wish he could have told us.
No puede ser.
About the world he saw. There's so much I don't understand.
No, para.
About everything. But I know what happened wasn't your fault. I'm sure he's happy.
No.
And he'd want you to be happy too. Good luck, Kay. Love, Sam.
Y estos se divorciaron. No puede ser, boludo. Todos los juguetes.
I can't imagine my mom ever writing poetry, and yet...
A ver. Gus.
A poem for Gus, who always said the wedding was a bad idea. Our father never hit us kids, at least not very hard, before the day my brother said with teenage disregard that he'd be dead before he'd see a wedding in our yard.
Los subtítulos son algo a ti. ¿Listo?
My father made him come, of course, but Gus stood far apart, just flew his kite and bottled up the storm inside his heart. But though he'd never met her, we don't need a stepmom, were the words that I now pronounce you husband and wife. When the time for photos came, Dad ordered him to come here. But Gus declined, and as a sign held up his middle finger.
Qué clean que la hice.
The wind picked up, and panicked geese appeared and quickly went. But all the humans did that day was go inside the tent. The rain came down in buckets then, but no one seemed afraid that nature might destroy the tent our dad had crudely made.
¿Qué pedazo de boti?
The thunder sounded much too close and full of angry power. But all my father said to this was, "Make the music louder."
No, no dijo eso. Está mal traducido. Dijo, suban la música. No. No, me morí.
I wish that I could truly say I thought about you on that day. Out there on the beach alone, just you, the wind, the sea and foam.
Oh, bueno,
but
sí.
I didn't. Until we found you.
Es increíble.
She never talked about him, but Mom told me once if I was a boy, they were going to name me Gus. My mom moved up to the loft after her brothers died. At the time, it was as far away as she could get. Religion was another thing my mom never talked about, but I think it helped her a lot after her dad died.
Vuela a la India. Menos mal que se murieron antes de volar a la India. Pero igual desde el 87, así que capaz lo hicieron.
She spent a summer building houses in Calcutta, where she met my dad, Sanjay.
No, el papá era indio, boludo. Qué pesadilla.
My mom moved to India a week after graduation
Se
and got a
muere
job
India.
teaching English. Lewis was born a year later.
Qué pesadilla enseñar inglés en la India, boludo. Después te salen todos. Welcome to another tutorial. Dios, cállense.
When my dad died, I don't think Mom knew where else to go. I'm sure Edie was happy to have her back.
Milton, Edith, Lewis, Don.
The house had to get a little bigger, but Edie was used to that. And for a while, things were good. Almost normal. But it didn't last. The beginning of the end was Milton's 10th birthday, when Edie gave him a castle. After Milton disappeared, the only thing he left behind was a room full of paintings.
Lewis.
Everyone always told me to stay out of Lewis's room, except Lewis.
Qué pedazo de lugar, boludo. Es el cyberpunk. Una marihuana ahí, boludo. Ojo. Se ve la historia de Lewis. Pero fumetas.
Lewis's room smelled very, very familiar. That part of him lived on.
Ojo.
Lewis and I
Turbo.
spent a lot of time playing games together, but he was surprisingly bad at them. He died a lot.
Ahora qué le pasó a este tipo. Instituto de
Dear
Psicología.
Mrs. Finch, as Lewis's psychiatrist, I can understand your desire for an explanation. As I see it, the trouble began in January, shortly after we convinced your son to seek treatment for substance abuse. Newly sober, I believe Lewis first noticed the monotony of his daily life. He kept working at the cannery, but he withdrew part of himself. In our sessions, I saw the same behavior. His mind began to
¿Qué?
wander.
Ah, lo puedo manejar.
I asked him to describe it. He said he started small, imagining a labyrinth.
Esto va a hacer las cosas al mismo tiempo. Se tardó un poco más en soltar el pescado. Está distrayendo.
He'd feel his way about. Then something moved. Bats. And toads. And things that have not names. He knew it was all in his head.
Estaba loco, básicamente.
But he took it very seriously. I had hoped he'd find himself. But he found something more.
Ojo. Uy, sligotti, chabón,
I worried
sligotti.
about him then. Daydreaming at the cannery. I spoke with his boss. But he said Lewis had become a model employee. Methodical, tireless, focused. Like a whole new Lewis. So I let him go on. I even encouraged him. It seemed very promising at first. He told me he'd made a new friend.
Che, es un goti este jueguito de acá al lado, boludo. Vos te decía el juegazo, boludo. Es impresionante.
On the edge of a city he named Lewis Topia. He built the city up slowly, brick by brick. Then he made musicians. And songs for them to play. He talked about starting a band. And he was always humming something.
Muy bueno esto.
Every day his imagination grew stronger. He no longer spoke at the cannery. But his chopping was as reliable as ever. Then one day it struck him that all the cheering crowds, even the stones under his feet, were all in his imagination, so he could do whatever he wished. He held an election for mayor. And he won.
Oh, Mario reference.
They begged him to stay, but his mind was already wandering. It became a game for him.
No, es il Gotti.
He'd conquer a city, then immediately push on. New Louisville. St. Louis. He started drifting away from our reality. Minneapolis. Until one day he forgot to go home from the cannery. Even as his mother pleaded with him, part of Louis kept sailing on. In Louisburg, he heard rumors of a...
No, una apuesta reina, una apuesta reina.
Handsome queen. The queen was on her own quest for...
Busca de arcoíris radiantes.
Radiant rainbows.
Sí.
He followed the sound of her.
El sonido de su arpa.
Silver harp.
No, lo solté. No sabía. Pero me está llegando una banda de pescados, ¿viste?
His chase led him to a golden palace east of the sun and west of the moon. Even then, his logic remained sound.
No, ya no se ve nada del coso. No es el Gotti este
He knew
jueguito,
the
boludo.
world was all in his imagination.
Ojo.
But he was so proud of having created it.
No.
In his own eyes, he'd become something greater than a king. For someone who'd never known success in the real world, I think it was overwhelming. And then it struck him that the real Louis was not the one chopping salmon, but the one climbing the steps of a golden palace. My imagination is as real as my body, he told me. It was hard to argue with him.
Qué pedazo de goti, boludo. ¿Y qué pasó ahora? Es increíble. Legalicen la marihuana.
He began to forget the world we know.
Así van a terminar ustedes, ¿eh? Yo sé que ustedes me están viendo, así van a terminar.
I think it pained him to remember Lewis, the cannery worker.
No, ese soy yo. Pero este es el héroe, boludo. No, es impresionante esto.
He began to despise the man with a royal contempt. I still thought I could save him. Even after he said he was being crowned king over all the lands of wonder. The palace would be packed with his companions. Including the wise Calico who'd insisted on inviting him.
Mira, gatito Molly, es increíble. Qué temón. Qué juegazo.
Holding his crown. There was only one thing left to do. Bend down his head.
No. No.
The rest I think you know. Mrs. Finch, your son was a kind man who will be missed by all of us who knew him.
Impresionante, boludo. ¿Qué carajo, chabón?
My brother was really cool. I wish you could have met him.
O sea, todas estas historias están contadas como una fantasía, pero como se murieron de una manera de verdad, con... Bueno, se entiende lo que dije, se entiende, ustedes me entienden, son inteligentes. No me voy a explayar mucho más tampoco de cómo... No conozco las palabras para expresarme.
My mom told me to start packing. She waited until the day before we left to tell Edie. I'm not sure if she wanted to make it easier or harder. I wish we'd stayed. But I understand why we left. My mom ended up leaving everything behind. What happened that night had been coming for a long time. Maybe it should have come sooner. But it had to end one way or another. All that's left now is to tell you about that last night.
Ojo. Edith. Por ahora la mejor historia de todas fue la de recién, la del cortada de pescado. Posta, fue el bote esa historia. A ver qué pasa acá. Ojo.
That whole last day, Edie just watched us pack and didn't say a word. Until supper, when she raised her glass and said,
"To our final night together, and all our final nights apart."
Grandma,
You know what I said about alcohol. Some of your medications are very
Edith,
specific.
I left a present for you in the hallway. Why don't you go open it? The grown-ups have to argue now.
I'm sorry, you're right. We're all leaving tomorrow. Let's just enjoy our last...
I'm not leaving.
Edith, you're excused.
A ver qué me
The power
dejó.
had been shut off that morning, but Edie always had plenty of candles. When my mom sealed the library, I don't think she knew about the other entrance. Or that Edie had a key to it.
Está literalmente sellada, es impresionante.
That thing you're afraid of isn't going to end when you leave the house. Edith has a right to know these stories.
My children are dead because of your stories. I think it's best if Edith and I leave tonight. We'll have the nursing home send a van for you in the morning, okay?
Dear Edith, there's so many stories I wish I could tell you, but there's only time for one. This is about what happened on the night you were born. That night, the tide went way, way out. It was the first and last time I ever saw the old house aground. There'd been an earthquake out in the middle of the ocean. They called it the lowest tide in 1,000 years. God, it smelled awful. You know, I've seen that house every day of my life. But I never thought I'd go back to it. When the fog rolled in, I lost my way. I got turned around. I started seeing things. Things I'd forgotten had ever existed. But when I saw them, they felt like old friends. That night, a lot of things came back to me. Or maybe I came back to them. Things I can't explain, but that I need you to try and...
Edith, what are you doing in here?
It's mine.
Edith!
Mom, you're gonna rip it! Let go!
No.
I kicked and screamed, but Mom dragged me to the car. I never saw Great-Grandma Edie again.
No, mira la abuela.
The next morning, the van came to pick her up, but she was already gone. After that, we moved around a lot.
Ojo. Sí, me puedo mover.
We both tried to make the best of it.
No, es que se ligó, tío, para que no leo nada. Ahora sí.
A few years went by.
Qué pedazo de bote.
My mom didn't like to talk about it. But she started getting sick a lot. The rest happened pretty quickly.
Oh.
She got better for a while, and then she didn't. and then I was alone. The last Finch left alive. Until I found out about you.
What?
I'm still not sure what to tell you about all this.
Aquí no está escribiendo.
If we lived forever, maybe we'd have time to understand things. But as it is, I think the best we can do is try to open our eyes. And appreciate how strange and brief all of this is. This journal was supposed to be for you. But now I hope you'll never see it.
¿Qué carajos?
I just want to meet you and tell you all these stories myself. But I guess if you're reading this now, things didn't work out that way. This is where your story begins. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it. It's a lot to ask, but I don't want you to be sad that I'm gone. I want you to be amazed that any of us ever had a chance to be here at all. Good luck.
Sí, el hijo. No, se cagó muriendo, boludo. Es impresionante. Es increíble, es increíble. Habrá que aplaudir, habrá que aplaudir. Es impresionante. Qué pedazo de boti, boludo. Es impresionante, realmente muy bueno, muy bueno. Muy bueno, el estilo. Todo el gameplay es impresionante. Está muy buenas ideas, chabón. Muy buenas ideas de los minijuegos. Todas las historias están muy zarpadas. Y la historia está buena, o sea, es una flashereada que cuenta cosas como reales, pero de un modo medio fantasía, que se murió un toque, que tiene una maldición, algo así, qué sé yo. Y está bueno, o sea, no es la historia súper mega profunda, pero está buena, está bien contada, es interesante. Está bien en todos los lados, tiene buenas cosas, boludo, así que... Muy bueno, posta que muy bueno, me sorprendió este juego, chabón. Es impresionante. Así que bueno, ahí se terminó. Banqué esto de subir un jueguito medio corto que se pueda subir en un video. Que lo puedo jugar en un día, editarlo y subirlo. Me banqué esto, me gustó, además está bueno. Así que capaz busco más jueguitos así, de historias cortitos, y los voy subiendo en estos días. Pero bueno, eso se estará viendo en los próximos días. Veremos qué pasa, capaz lo hago, capaz no vuelvo nunca más. Así que bueno, nos veremos, o capaz no, en un próximo video. Adiós.